interesting times. For the headlines. The palace on Friday scoffed at Maria Ressa's claims the government was behind her arrest for cyber libel and was abusing its power, urging her to be woman enough and face her case instead of blaming the administration. The U.S. House of Representatives passed a compromise package that funds federal operations and prevents a looming government shutdown, sending it to President Donald Trump's desk for his signature. British Prime Minister Theresa May suffered another defeat in Parliament over her Brexit strategy, just 43 days before Britain is due to leave the European Union.
So the noes have it. The noes have it.
And top U.S. trade negotiator Robert Lighthizer told Chinese President Xi Jinping on Friday that very difficult issues remained after 2 days of U.S.-China trade talks wrapped up in Beijing. I'm Judith Yamero, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us. And now to the news. The palace on Friday, February 15, scoffed at Maria Ressa's claims the government was behind her arrest for cyber libel and was abusing its power, urging her to be woman enough and face her case instead of blaming the administration. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo said, quote, "Excuse me, Maria, abuse of power? You are the one abusing your power as a journalist. You are marshalling your colleagues to support you on the basis of misplaced and baseless cause. What is the cause?" Addressing Ressa's claims, the government was using the law as a weapon to intimidate. Panelo said it was actually Ressa who was weaponizing freedom of expression against the government. He said Ressa wants to be treated differently. He also added she has to be woman enough to face the complaint against her. Stop blaming the government, he said, adding that those who were or who supported her were either misinformed or have not read the complaint. The cyber libel charges filed by Wilfredo Keng against Rappler, Ressa, and former reporter Reynaldo Santos stem from a Rappler article published in 2012 and edited in 2014 that linked the complainant to illegal drugs and human trafficking, citing an intelligence report. In indicting the three, the Department of Justice said the elements of libel were present in the article, while the DOJ agreed with Ressa's camp that August 2012 publication of the article was not covered by the cybercrime law, which was enacted in September of that year. It said the editing of the article in 2014 was. The DOJ also debunked Ressa camp's arguments that they could not be held for libel as the one-year prescriptive period for the filing of such had already lapsed, saying the three were being charged with cyber libel in the first place. Under the Cybercrime Prevention Act, the DOJ said the punishment for such an offense was 1 degree higher than that of libel. Given this, the DOJ said RA 3326, which governs special laws such as the cyber libel law, notes that the prescriptive period for such an offense is 12 years. Meanwhile, the businessman who filed cyber libel charges against Rappler Incorporated, its executive editor Maria Ressa, and former reporter Reynaldo Santos on Friday, February 15, said he was exploring other cases that can be filed against the online news outfit and Ressa, as he decried what he said were their attempts to mislead the public. In a statement, Wilfredo Keng slammed what he said was Rappler's and Ressa's ingenious attempt to divert attention away from this singular legal issue by intentionally and wrongfully lumping his case together with all other cases that have been filed against them and posturing the cases as alleged concerted silencing maneuvers by the government. Keng maintained he has nothing to do with and he is in no way being used by the government. He is an ordinary private citizen, and this is a personal private suit. It is a basic remedy filed against defamatory words. He said his case does not tackle state suppression of policy criticism or free expression of sentiment, and its filing and progression do not impinge in any way on freedom of speech and of the press, freedoms which he fully believes in and supports. In fact, he said his case was aligned through a common objective of truth, its resolution revolving around the answer to one simple question: did Rappler, Resas, and Santos lie about him? I said, quote, I decry any attempt, blatant or veiled, to mislead the Filipino people and thwart public appreciation of the real issue at hand, Gang said. In other news, the U.S. House of Representatives on Thursday passed a compromise package that funds federal operations and prevents a looming government shutdown, sending it to President Donald Trump's desk for his signature. The White House has said that Trump intends to sign the measure, which passed 300 to 128, heading off a partial government shutdown that would otherwise begin at midnight Friday. Meanwhile, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi signs a funding bill that will help avoid another government shutdown.
300 votes on the floor of the House. It was quite a remarkable show. And I just, for my own part, want to say that I thank our conferees for having us honor our oath of office to protect our country by securing our border and protecting our values. And where we go from here will be for us all to honor the Constitution, especially Article 1, especially the system of checks and balances. We will not have an end run around the Congress of the United States. And with that, I am delighted to use many pens to sign this important legislation. I guess I should take that.
President Donald Trump plans to declare a national emergency to fund his controversial border wall. The White House said Thursday a move that alarmed U.S. lawmakers shortly before they passed legislation to avert a government shutdown. Trump has signaled he will sign the massive spending measure keeping federal agencies operational through September 30, but it does not specifically fund a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border, and Trump's emergency declaration would help him bypass Congress to locate and redirect billions of dollars in funding to build it. Trump will take the action to ensure they stop the national security and humanitarian crisis at the border. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said shortly before the Senate passed the spending bill. The House of Representatives followed suit hours later, and Trump has until a midnight Friday deadline to sign it and prevent the government from going into shutdown for the second time this year. Signing the spending bill would bring an end to a rolling two-month battle over government funding, but by declaring an emergency, Trump opens a new confrontation and creates some of the riskiest legal peril of his term. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, or Trump's Democratic nemesis in Congress, said members of her caucus were reviewing their options about how to respond to Trump's move. Declaring a national emergency would be a lawless act, a gross abuse of the power of the presidency, and a desperate attempt to distract from the fact that President Trump broke his core promise to have Mexico pay for his wall, Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said in a statement. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said he backs the president, but several others in the Republican camp have expressed deep reservations. I said, quote, I have concerns about the president that could be set with the use of emergency action to reappropriate funds, the veteran Republican Senator Chuck Grassley said in a statement. Senator Susan Collins said it would be a mistake on the part of the president to declare such an emergency, warning it would undermine lawmakers' all-important role as financial appropriators. Many lawmakers have said they have no idea from where Trump will draw the funding. Democrats in particular have signaled that the move would open the door to future presidents declaring emergencies on various topics, from gun violence to climate change to the opioid crisis.
And when you add whatever I have to add, it's all.
Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Theresa May suffered another defeat in Parliament over her Brexit strategy, just 43 days before Britain is due to leave the European Union. The House of Commons rejected a government motion intended to express MP support for May as she continues an 11th-hour bid to renegotiate her Brexit deal with the EU. Hardline Eurosceptics in her Conservative Party abstained from voting on the government's non-binding motion, which they believe raised the chances of avoiding a no-deal Brexit. Opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn said the defeat shows there is no majority for the Prime Minister's course of action in dealing with Brexit. She cannot keep on just running down the clock and hoping that something will turn up that will save her day and save her face, he said of May, who was not in Parliament for the defeat. A Downing Street spokesman blamed the setback on a concern from some Conservative colleagues about taking no deal off the table at this stage. He added that the government would continue to seek changes to the withdrawal agreement May has struck with the EU, but has so far failed to sell to MPs to ensure they leave on time on the 29th of March. Leading Brexiteer Liam Fox had earlier warned colleagues that defeat would raise a doubt about whether a regular or renegotiated deal could get through Parliament, making the bloc less likely to make an offer.
Order! Order!
The eyes to the right, 258.
More news when Eagle News International returns.
Abangan nyo ako dito sa Young Once Upon a Time Season 2 ngayong linggo alas 8 ng gabi dito lang sa Net 25.
Alamin ang mga pinakahuling kaganapan sa loob at labas ng bansa. Agila Balita. Din ang mga sariwang pangyari sa mga lalawigan. Sa Agila Probinsya, ihimayin ang mga pangyari sa Asia. Hatid ng ASEAN in Focus. Pati na ang mga kaganapan sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo sa Eaglenews International. Huwag palampasin ang mga pinakahuling pangyayari sa mata ng Agila. Mga balitang makabuluhan, dapat subaybayan dito lamang sa Net 25.
Landmarks, Linggo, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi.
Welcome back. 25 countries have pledged $100 million in aid to Venezuela, a top U.S. official said Thursday. As the crisis hit, country's Supreme Court took aim at oil executives appointed by the opposition. Venezuela is plagued by hyperinflation and major shortages of basic goods, and two men, opposition leader Juan Guaido and President Nicolas Maduro, are vying for control of the country. The United States is among more than 50 countries that have recognized Guaido as interim president, but Maduro, backed by the country's military as well as Russia, China, and dozens of other states, has so far refused to relinquish his office. U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton made the announcement on the aid pledge to Venezuela following an Organization of American States conference on assisting the country. According to David Smolansky, coordinator of an OAS working group on migration and refugees from Venezuela, the money will go directly to aid collection centers set up on the borders with Colombia and Brazil and on the Caribbean island of Curacao. At the opening of the conference in Washington, White House representative in the United States, Carlos Vecchio, said the priority is to get aid into Venezuela on February 23, a month after Guaido declared himself Venezuela's interim president. In other news, Haitian President Jovenel Moïse on Thursday broke his silence after a week of violent protests demanding his resignation as the U.S. announced it was pulling non-emergency personnel from the country over the deadly unrest. Moïse said, quote, he will not leave the country in the hands of armed gangs and drug traffickers, in a pre-recorded address broadcast on state television, speaking in Creole in the aftermath of clashes between authorities and demonstrators in the capital, Port-au-Prince.
Moi-même Jovenel Moïse, chef de l'État, moi pas plaguer pays à nan gang armé ak di les drogue. Moi tande voix peuple là. Moi compte problème qui tourmenté nous. C'est peut-être ça qu'il y a un paquet de mesures gouvernement prend. Moi mandé premier ministre là pour venir expliquer et appliquer pressé pour soulager misère. Nous passons un latrier gouvernement transition qui a un paquet de catastrophes avec désordre qui fait payer en pile mal.
Since February 7, at least 7 people have died as Haiti has been plunged into political crisis, with everyday life paralyzed by protests and barricades in the largest towns. The protesters angry about skyrocketing inflation and the alleged theft of nearly $2 billion in Venezuelan oil relief to the island are demanding Moïse's resignation. Meanwhile, the United States announced it was removing non-emergency personnel from the country on Thursday, the same day that Canada said it was temporarily shuttering its embassy. There are currently widespread violent and unpredictable demonstrations in Port-au-Prince and elsewhere in Haiti. Due to these demonstrations, on February 14, 2019, the Department of State ordered the departure of all non-emergency U.S. personnel and their family members. Canada also said it was closing its embassy in Port-au-Prince on Thursday due to current volatility, but would continue to assess the situation in the coming days. Moïse, a 50-year-old former entrepreneur who set up a string of business in the north of the country, where he hails from, burst onto the political stage 2 years ago with a populist message of building up the impoverished Caribbean nation. Spain's Prime Minister on Friday called an early general election for April 28, the third in less than 4 years, after his draft budget was rejected in Parliament over the Catalan succession crisis. Between two options, not doing anything and continuing without a budget or giving Spaniards their say. I quote, I choose the second, Pedro Sanchez told reporters before announcing the date. Sanchez took power just over 8 months ago after he ousted his conservative rival in a dramatic parliamentary no-confidence vote. But it has been a turbulent term at the head of a fragile minority government. The 46-year-old had to rely on the support of unlikely bedfellows in parliament, including the far-left Podemos party, Basque and nationalist lawmakers, and crucially 17 Catalan separatist MPs. On Wednesday, Catalan MPs joined right-wing lawmakers in rejecting his budget. They withdrew their backing in protest at separatist leaders being put on trial for their role in a 2017 attempt to break Catalonia from Spain. Even before Sanchez's announcement, the socialists had already adopted a campaign-like tone, accusing Catalan separatists and conservatives of blocking a budget that included many social spending measures after years of austerity. On Friday, Sanchez blasted blocking a social budget after 7 years of social injustice, austerity, and spending cuts. He highlighted his government's short track record, from a 22% rise in the minimum wage to fighting against energy poverty. In other news, at least 23 illegal gold miners were feared dead in Zimbabwe on Thursday after water flooded two disused shafts in a mining town 145 kilometers or 90 miles southwest of the capital, Harare. Rescuers were trying to use pumps to extract water in the search for survivors and bodies at the site near the town of Kadoma. The state-owned Herald newspaper said the other mine was privately owned. District Administrator Fortunate Muzulu told the paper at least 23 people were trapped underground and that the chances of rescuing any survivors are very slim. The illegal miners entered the shafts at night to evade the owners, Muzulu said. Police would not confirm the incident, saying they were yet to receive a full report. Zimbabwe has valuable platinum, diamond, gold, coal, and copper deposits. Meanwhile, India and Pakistan's troubled ties risk taking a dangerous new turn on Friday, as New Delhi accused Islamabad of harboring militants behind one of the deadliest attacks in 3 decades of bloodshed in Indian-administered Kashmir. At least 41 paramilitary troops were killed on Thursday as explosive packed in a van ripped through a convoy bringing 2,500 troopers back from leave not far from the main city, Srinagar, the police said. Local media reported that the Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed Islamist group claimed responsibility with the vehicles driven by a known local militant, Adil Ahmad alias Waqas Commando. Kashmir has been split between India and Pakistan since independence from Britain in 1947, with both nuclear-armed countries which have fought 3 wars claiming it as their own. Jaish-e-Mohammed is largely considered to be one of the most active Pakistan-backed insurgent groups fighting in Kashmir and was the first militant group to introduce suicide bombers into the conflict. India's foreign ministry said that Jaish-Mohammed had Masood Azhar has been given full freedom by Pakistan to operate and expand its terror infrastructure in territories under the control of Pakistan and to carry out attacks in India and elsewhere with impunity.
मैं आतंकी संगठनों को और उनके सरपरस्तों को कहना चाहता हूं कि वे बहुत बड़ी गलती कर चुके हैं। बहुत बड़ी कीमत उनको चुकानी पड़ेगी। पूरे विश्व में अलग थलग पड़ चुका हमारा पड़ोसी देश अगर ये समझता है कि जिस तरह के कृत्य वो कर रहा है, जिस तरह की साजिश रच रहा है, उससे भारत में अस्थिरता पैदा करने में सफल हो जाएगा, तो वो ख्वाब हमेशा हमेशा के लिए छोड़ दे। वो कभी ये नहीं कर पाएगा और न कभी ये होने वाला है।
Islamabad, however, hit back at the suggestion. The Pakistan Foreign Ministry said they strongly reject any insinuation by the elements in the Indian media and government that seek to link the attack to Pakistan without investigations. Eagle News International will be right back. Stay tuned.
Tungkulin ng MTRCV ang mag-provide na appropriate ratings sa lahat ng TV shows. Para ugaliin ng pamilya ang responsableng pananood. Teamwork tayo, parents!
Rated G, good for all!
No, ang
Oops! Rated PG!
Dapat may mga magulang para sagutin ang mga tanong ng kabataan.
Grabe! Rated SPG! Maselan!
Higpitan ang paggabay.
Pag rated MTRCB, rated responsable.
Events happen around us all the time. In our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
Hi guys, I'm Marie Francisco here at the Shoe Museum in Marikina in the Philippines, reminding you to watch Digital News every Tuesday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m. And I am 1 for 25.
Mula sa mga kalungsuran, sa kapatagan, hanggang sa kabundukan, maging sa gitna ng mga isla at karagatan. Agila, Pilipinas, walang balitang makakalagpas. Simula sa Lunes at 18 ng Pebrero, alas 10:30 ng umaga, live sa Net25 at Eaglenews.PH. Abangan!
Pep News, Linggo, alas 4 hanggang alas 5 ng hapon.
Global stocks mostly fell on Thursday as traders awaited news from high-level U.S.-China trade talks in Beijing. And Wall Street was hit by bad news in the U.S. retail sector. London, however, managed to eke out a small closing gain thanks to pound weakness, which boosted earnings of FTSE-listed multinationals with income in other currencies. U.S. stocks were mostly negative after the Commerce Department reported U.S. retail sales had dropped 1.2% in December from the previous month, marking the largest month-to-month decrease since September of 2009. The report suggested American consumers had held back during a peak holiday shopping season during a time that coincided with a plunge in the stock market. Chief of Market Strategies at National, Art Hogan, said they never like to take one piece of the data and extrapolate, especially if you look at the 35-day-long shutdown tensions on the trade front. The biggest loser in the dough was Coca-Cola, which dived 8.4% after unveiling a disappointing 2019 outlook. The soda giant cited weakness in several emerging markets, including Turkey, Argentina, and parts of Africa. European indices, which had gained ground earlier, had mostly slipped into the red by the close. Shares in Airbus jumped in Paris after the European plane maker said it would stop building its A380 owing to poor demand for the Super Jumbo. But it announced net profit had soared 29% in 2018 on strong sales of its smaller planes. Earlier, Asian markets had already dropped as traders reacted to a batch of mixed earnings updates. David Madden, analyst at CMC Markets UK, said strong Chinese trade data boded well for talks with the United States. That fact that China's economy is showing some signs of improvement might mean Beijing will be less susceptible to pressure from the U.S. regarding the trade dispute, he said. Top U.S. trade negotiator Robert Lighthizer told Chinese President Xi Jinping on Friday that very difficult issues remained after 2 days of U.S.-China trade talks wrapped up in Beijing. U.S. Trade Representative Lighthizer told Xi at the beginning of a meeting attended by top American and Chinese negotiators said they have had 2 very good days of negotiations. Lighthizer said they feel that they have to make headway on some very, very important and very difficult issues. They have additional work to do, but they are hopeful. Top officials from the world's two biggest economies held 2 days of talks, hoping make progress to stave off an escalation of their tariff war. They all believe that China-U.S. relations have broad common interest in safeguarding world peace and stability and promoting global economic prosperity and development. She told the U.S. negotiators at the start of the meeting. Lighthizer was joined by U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and other U.S. officials around a conference table in China's Great Hall of the People, with Xi and top trade negotiator Liu He, Foreign Minister Wang Yi, Central Bank Chief Yi Gang, and others after the 2 days of trade negotiations concluded. The South China Morning Post, citing a source, reported Friday trade talks will continue next week in Washington. Mnuchin said the sides had productive meetings in a tweet earlier in the day. Australia said Friday a long-awaited trade deal with Indonesia will be signed in March, following months of diplomatic tension over Canberra's contentious plan to move its embassy to Jerusalem. The multi-billion-dollar deal will include improved access for Australian cattle and sheep farmers to Indonesia's 260 million people, while Australian universities, health providers, and miners will also benefit from easier entry to Southeast Asia's biggest economy. Greater access to the Australian market is expected to spur Indonesia's automotive and textile industries and boost exports of timber, electronic, and medicinal goods. Australia's Minister for Trade, Simon Birmingham, said this a strong deal for both their countries, which will increase the two-way flow of trade and investment, creating more opportunities for farmers, businesses, and economic development. Bilateral trade was worth $11.7 billion in 2017. The deal has been in negotiation since 2010 and was expected to be signed before the end of last year before it stalled when Prime Minister Scott Morrison proposed the relocation of Australia's embassy to Jerusalem. Morrison first floated the shift in October, ahead of a critical by-election in a Sydney suburb with a sizable Jewish population. Indonesia, the world's most populous Muslim nation, was angered by the proposal. Eagle News International will be right back.
Umalis na kayo! Hindi nyo na ako mapipigilan!
Sino pa nagpapuli sa'yo? Sabi mo sa akin!
Hindi nyo alam nararamdaman ko. Hindi lang ito simpleng kalungkutan.
Hindi kami papayag kami nang bubuli sa aming barangay!
Ako si Joaquin! Classmate mo ng high school.
Joaquin? Yes! Ikaw yung nambubuli sa akin nung high school pa tayo.
Ano? Kausap ko si Stella. Sabi niya,
wala naman akong magawa kasi lagi ako kinukulit. Paulit-ulit.
tigilan mo na raw siya dahil nakukulitan daw siya sa'yo. Eh, lampa ka naman talaga, di ba? Manliligo kay Stella. Wala ka namang pera.
Ang gumawa niyan sa'yo, pagbubunang tawag dyan! Lahat naman ng tao ay dumadaan sa mga pagsubok.
Mas maraming dahilan kung bakit kailangan mo mas maging masaya kaysa maging malungkot.
Huwag kang mawawala ng pag-asa. Dahil kapag nangyari yon, doon ka talo. Imbes na mag-focus ka dun sa mga bagay na nagpapalungkot sa'yo, bakit hindi ka mag-focus dun sa mga nagpapasaya sa'yo? Mas maraming dahilan para maging masaya.
Stella, ang galing-galing mo palang bumato. Hindi ka palang bumabato. Tinamaan ako sa'yo.
Si Ima Castro, and abangan nyo ako dito sa Young Once Upon a Time Season 2 ngayong linggo, alas 8 ng gabi, dito lang sa Net25.
Landmarks, Linggo, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi.
runoff from recent floods in northern Australia is flowing onto parts of the barrier reef, scientists said Friday, starving coral of light and providing fodder for the predatory crown-of-thorns starfish. Parts of northern Queensland are still reeling after nearly 2 weeks of unprecedented rainfall that turned roads into rivers and inundated hundreds of homes with flood water. Scientists at James Cook University say the floods swelled a number of rivers along hundreds of kilometers of coastline, spilling sediment onto the reef, which has reduced water quality and much needed sunlight. Coral reef and seagrass need light to maintain their growth and health, researcher Jane Waterhouse from James Cook University told media. Calm weather following the extended period of rain means the murky water is yet to disperse. It threatens to smother coral in areas worst hit, like at the mouth of North Queensland's Burdekin River, where a brown flood plume has spread some 100 kilometers offshore. If that were to stay there, then eventually it would not take that long for some of those systems to die off, Waterhouse added. The effects will not fully understood until monitoring was completed over the next few months after sediment has dispersed and settled. The 2,300-kilometer reef has already suffered from back-to-back coral bleaching in 2016 and 2017, where swaids have been killed by rising sea temperatures linked to climate change. The predatory crown-of-thorns starfish, which eats coral, have also proliferated on the reef due to pollution and agricultural runoff. The recent floods have exacerbated the runoff, causing algae to grow in some areas. This provides a brilliant food source to allow those populations to thrive, Waterhouse added. Indonesian firms owe at least $1.3 billion in unpaid fines for environmental damage caused by widespread forest clearing and deadly fires linked to tens of thousands of premature deaths, a Greenpeace study said Friday. Citing government data, the environmental group said it examined 11 civil court cases between 2012 and 2018 where palm oil and pulp and paper companies were ordered to pay fines to Jakarta. However, not one of these forest cases has resulted in compensation being paid, the Greenpeace said. The cases were mostly linked to damage from fires that tore through Indonesia in 2015, causing as much as $16 billion in damages to forestry and agriculture, as well as to tourism and other industry, it added, citing World Bank figures. The 2015 blazes destroyed some 2 million hectares of land and sparked a massive haze outbreak over Singapore and Malaysia, leading to diplomatic frictions. A U.S. academic study estimated that the crisis may have led to more than 100,000 premature deaths. Until today, not one company has paid compensation for their role in this catastrophe, Greenpeace said. Most of the $1.3 billion in penalties was attributed to the single case of a firm found to have been engaged in illegal logging that saw vast tracts of forest destroyed. Unpaid compensation is money owed to Indonesians and could be used for large-scale forest restoration and to prevent future damage, it added. By not forcing these companies to pay, the government is sending a dangerous message. Company profit comes before law, clean air, health, and forest protection, said Greenpeace Indonesia forest campaigner Ari Rompas. The Environment Ministry did not immediately respond to requests for the comment on the report.
Argentine footballer Emiliano Sala's body is to be returned to Argentina, the mayor of his hometown of Progreso, Julio Mueller, told the media. Sala's body was recovered from plane wreckage in the English Channel last week. He was flying to his new team, English Premier League side Cardiff City, from his old French club Nantes when his plane went missing over the channel on January 21st. Mueller said Sala's body would arrive in the late afternoon and be taken to the gymnasium next to his club's headquarters where a vigil was scheduled. Sala, who was 28, died of head and trunk injuries, and inquest in England heard of on Monday. He was traveling in a light aircraft that disappeared near the British island on Guernsey. The wreckage was found on the seabed, but 59-year-old pilot David Ibbotson remains missing. Salah's former team gave him a rousing send-off on Sunday, playing a French League match in a special all-black kit for the occasion, with each player wearing the Argentines name on the back of their jersey rather than their own. In the NHL, Vegas Golden Knights lose second straight home game to Arizona Coyotes. Here's EBC Sports correspondent Aljamain Santos for the report.
The divisional game between the Arizona Coyotes and the Vegas Golden Knights may bring back a few memories for Vegas locals. An uneventful first period led to an action-packed second period, with the game's goals happening back-to-back of one another for both teams. But the Golden Knights lacked the push to finish out the game.
It was the last game, we had a great push. We played really hard, played like we had a chance to get back in the game and score a couple goals late in the second period. And felt like, we came in the locker room, we got to feel good about our game, and understand that is what you need to do to win. And you come off the third period dead flat, and they take it to you, and they get a goal, and then we're fighting an uphill battle the rest of the game. You can't start playing when you're down.
There's a lot of small things you can do to change, but just come out harder on the team. Absolutely dominate them and not get dominated.
We got 40-some shots. I didn't like the way we played. I thought we played about 10 minutes, a little bit hockey play. There was no passion in our game. There was no aggressive forecheck in our game. We played a soft game, and in my opinion, we gave them 3 goals from our mistakes, not from what they deserved.
The Golden Knights will host the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Nashville Predators before heading out to Colorado to face the Avalanche in another divisional matchup. From the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, I'm Aljamain Santos for EBC Sports International, 1 with 25.
Thank you, Aljamain. In the NBA, Julius Randle finished with 33 points and 11 rebounds as the New Orleans Pelicans overcame another triple-double from Russell Westbrook to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder 131-122 on Thursday. The victory could prove costly for the Pelicans as All-Star Anthony Davis left the game with a shoulder injury at the end of the first half. The disgruntled Davis, who has requested a trade, did not return, and it was unknown whether the injury would keep him out of the NBA All-Star Game on Sunday in Charlotte, North Carolina. Davis finished with 14 points in 15 minutes of playing time. Randle also added 3 clutch baskets in the final minutes, and teammate Drew Holiday scored 32 points for the Pelicans, who have lost 8 of their last 12 games as the league now heads into the annual midseason All-Star break. Westbrook continued his eye-popping performances, extending his league record with an 11th straight triple-double as he finished with 44 points, 14 rebounds, and 11 assists. It was the 12th time in Westbrook's career in which he scored at least 40 points in a triple-double that puts him in the tie for second place with Houston's James Harden for the most 40-point triple-doubles in the NBA history. And these are the results of the other games today in the NBA. And these are the stories for EN Sports. I'm Ben Ronaldez, and I am 1 with 25.
EBC Films Guerrero recently premiered in Oslo, Norway. Here's Rana Balbin for the report.
Welcome to the movie screening of Guerrero here in Oslo, Norway. Guerrero, a Filipino full-length movie, was released October 2017 by Eagle Broadcasting Corporation, directed by no other than the internationally acclaimed director, Carlo Ortega Cuevas. The movie was nominated for numerous categories from local up to international scene.
Kung nandyan ka sa tabi ko, kahit kung minsan nag-aaway tayo, kung minsan hindi ko maiwasan magtampo, nagpapalambing lang sa'yo, panatag ang...
Now, it's showing for the first time here in Norway to a packed audience.
The main aim po is to promote values, particularly Christian values.
Ngunit kung minsan hindi ko maiwasan mabighati Kasi nagpapanatan. Nandyan.
Kamusta yung movie? Ayos? Maganda? Thumbs up?
Palaging nandyan ang langit. Minsan di ko matapos.
Yes, opo, super.
Yeah.
It's a good film that I love the part where the family and his girlfriend torn apart, and he still managed to build his life, fight for his life, fight to live again, and he found God again in his life. And it's a strong emotion. It's very strong that it made me cry actually, and it made me laugh. I fell in love, and it broke my heart too. And I want the second film is that Miguel.
Yes.
Miguel is very nice because he's funny.
Yeah.
He gave
a sense of humor.
Yeah. It gave life to.
Did you enjoy the film?
Yes!
Is there any part of the film that you like the best? Maybe
Everything was good.
everything was good. How about Agatha? What can you say about the film?
It was really good.
Yeah. Is there any character or any role in the film that you like the best? Who did you like the best of the actors?
Miguel.
Miguel. Why? Why did you like Miguel?
Because he was so close to his brother and helped him.
Yeah. How about Miko? Is there any character that you like in the film?
I really like the coach
The coach? Yeah. Why did you like him?
because he was very helpful for the boxer.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. How about Jang Jang? Did you like the film? Yes. Do you want to watch?
Yes, I do. I enjoyed the film a lot.
Is there any part in the film that you like the best?
The best of the part is when he actually woke up in a coma for 5 years.
Yeah.
That everything actually has changed. And a lot of things have happened ever since he got knocked out during the boxing ring.
Yes. Which character of the film did you like the best?
I would say Ramon,
Yeah.
a boxer, of course.
Puno ng aral.
Ay, sino po yung favorite yung character?
Yung bata, si Miguel.
Dakilang pag-ibig sa tuwing naririnig ko ang iyong tinig.
Maganda ba yung movie? Kailan kamusta po yung movie?
Masaya po.
Ano masasabi niya? Maganda?
Maganda po. Maganda po yung moral lesson.
Yes. Kamusta po yung movie?
Never give up. Keep on fighting. Yes.
Guerrero has touched the hearts of many fellow Filipinos back in the Philippines and also abroad here in Oslo.
Nandyan, nandyan, palaging nandyan ang langit. Umaraw man o umulan, nandyan.
Reporting from Oslo, Norway, I'm Rona Baudin and I am 1 with 25.
Minsan di ko matagpuan, minsan di ko maramdaman, pero nandyan.
Thank you, Rona, and that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Judith Yamera, and I am 1 with 25.